All right, good evening. I would like to officially call to order the Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And pursuant to the amendment of Bill. Oh, there we go. All right. I think everybody's back on mute. So pursuant to the amendment of Bill Bill H 3548, and Governor Healy signing such amendment into law in March 2023, expressing certain provisions of the open meeting law. This public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom Video Communications, Inc. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. Those who are using Zoom, please utilize the chat or raise hand function to address the board. You will remain on mute usually until you have been addressed by the board, and participants are required to display their first and last names. All that said, per tradition, we'll start with a roll call of present members. I am Brian Barabee.
Walt Brandwold.
Jim Garrity.
Okay. All right. First up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now consider. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now open the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 22 West Berlin Road. Lauren, is the applicant or someone representing the applicant here this evening?
Yes, this is Brandon Ducharme with David E. Ross.
Okay. I was gonna say we can unmute. If you could give us a quick rundown on what you were proposing here. It looks like a septic replacement.
Yes, so we have a septic replacement. Do you want me to share my screen to
If you have that ability, that would be wonderful. Yes.
Yeah. Hold on a second. All right. Again, this is Brandon Ducharme with David E. Ross Associates here on behalf of Steve Daly, and this property is located at 22 West Berlin Road. 22 West Berlin Road is quite a large parcel. It's historically been farmed, and much of this area in and around both the house, and there's also a carriage house or a cottage out in the back of the property here. And what we've done is there's been a recent transaction which Steve Daly purchased this property, and part of doing that, the septic system needs to be upgraded to new Title V and Bolton's Board of Health requirements. Given the age of these properties, both the septic systems are cesspools, which we're looking to obviously upgrade those to a more conventional type leaching system. And what we've done, it's actually two separate addresses, two houses here. In the front along West Berlin Road, the main house is here in the front. There's an existing barn located behind it. And then as you come down the driveway, this is kind of going down the hill, there's a small cottage out here in the back of the property. And if you were to drive by this on the street, all this area is pretty much entirely hayfield, agricultural field. But in the back corner of this field, there's a wet meadow. If you were probably to walk through there, you wouldn't even know it was a wetland. But obviously, when we were out on site, we looked at soils, we looked at some of the grasses that were located in there, and obviously delineated that as a bordering vegetated wetland. There's a corresponding 100-foot buffer zone that encompasses about half of this cottage in the back. And what we're looking to do to upgrade this septic is we're actually going to do one new system that'll tie both properties together. And as it stands today, there's an existing cesspool that's actually located within the 100-foot buffer zone. So obviously, any replacement of that is a dramatic improvement. What we've done is we've actually, probably about 300 feet from the wetlands, we did some soil testing up in this area, and we found an area for a conventional leaching system. We're actually using a geomat technology for that. And in order to have this cottage access that leaching facility, what we're looking to do, and part of the work in the buffer zone is just to obviously pump out and get rid of that existing cesspool. And then we're going to drop a new contained septic system in that location, because right now the sewer pipe comes out of the back of the cottage. It's the low point in the building. And then that's going to carry over to a dosing chamber or a pump chamber, which is located outside of the buffer zone. And that's going to go up and do pressure distribution of that leaching facility. So in terms of the septic, it's pretty minor. We're kind of in that outer, it's almost 90 feet from the wetlands. As I said, all this area is just existing grass. But in talking with them, there was a couple other, as they're updating that house, there's a couple other things that they're doing to the side of the building here that we figured would just wrap into this RDA. One of them is they're looking to add a generator to the side of the building, so it's located, really, right at the edge of the building. And the other thing is they're converting the heating system over to propane. So we've shown a propane, what'll be an underground storage tank, about 10 feet off the existing building in the grassed area there. And again, it's the code for the propane. We got to get that at least 10 feet from the building and 10 feet from all electrical lines and whatnot. So as we look at this, in terms of the propane and the generator, it's probably about a day's worth of work to take those out and drop a new tank in. The septic system, I mean, that tank will probably be, let's just say 3 days or so. Once they drop the tank, they'll obviously need to get an inspection from the Board of Health. But when that's completed, everything will be backfilled and reseeded and returned to the same state that it was in, or that it's in now.
Right, which is primarily field. It sounds like where the propane tank is going is probably maintained lawn/field at this point.
Exactly, it's grass. Yep, lawn.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and the generator going on a pad.
Yes.
But right up attached to the house, basically next to the house, and
yep.
All right. I'm trying to think. I don't have many initial questions, Brandon, but I think if possible, I'd like to come out on a site visit just to check the flagging of the BVW, to go out there with the auger and just to see that we agree as to where that is.
Sure.
And it looks like that the proposed erosion control seems fine. Again, just to I'd like to see the topography out there to see how and where it goes, but I don't really have many questions really other than that. It seems pretty seems pretty clear to me what you're trying to do, and I get that most of it is outside of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, all the work is greater than 80 feet from the wetland. And again, topography is a good thing to point out, which I would have mentioned actually, is the way that hill slope is it's obviously heading, towards this stone wall in the back. So any runoff or stormwater, even during construction, is actually going to come downhill. It's not going to go towards the wetland at all.
Oh, nice. All right. So let me ask you, do other commission members have any initial comments, questions, and or thoughts?
Just a quick question on the propane tank and the generator. Is there any reason why you couldn't put it on the other side of the house, so it would be outside of the buffer zone, or?
So initially, well, there's a couple things. As we look at the other side of the house here, there's an existing well, and we've got a water line coming in, and then we've got there's obviously electric associated with that. Plus, we've got the new force main, and there's also another sewer line that comes down from the main house out by the street. So there's a lot of things happening in here in terms of utilities and getting the required setbacks from those utilities. The more logical, is if you were to really just look at this as black and white on paper, you could say, oh, we could throw it, right in front of the house. But again, we're trying to at least put it on the side, especially given where the existing utilities are. It kind of made the most sense to have it there. And given the fact that it was, it's it's a relatively minor project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have no further question.
Okay. Any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? And I'm not seeing any. All right. So, Brendan, if possible, would it be possible if we continue to our next meeting just so we can go out there on a site visit and again just to basically check those flags?
Yeah, I mean, obviously historically, I know you guys like to do a site walk. I mean, the only thing is obviously they've got somebody lined up that they're trying to solve this septic solution as quick as they can, but you know, one meeting certainly isn't gonna, you know, throw that off, so.
Okay, and we'll.
But this has gone, I guess that's a good thing to point out. This
Oh.
has gone through the Board of Health. It's all approved. The contractor's lined up and ready to go. You know, I told them, obviously, it's, oh, the work associated with the septic tank is gonna be pending the outcome of this hearing, but they can certainly get started on the leaching field and everything that's outside.
Okay. And is there a DEP file number? Did you guys?
There is not, and I believe because it's an RDA, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, sorry. Okay. All right. In that case, yeah, we'll try to say I'm trying to figure out when our next meeting is, and I believe it's going to be October 17th, Tuesday the 17th.
Okay,
And we should be able to try to schedule a site walk between now and then. So we'll
sure,
make sure
yeah,
we get
I'm
out there.
available whenever, if you just want to, yeah, let me know, we can coordinate, so.
That is excellent. Okay. In that case, let me make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 22 West Berlin Road until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 17th at 7:00 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second,
All those in favor, starting with Paul,
aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well, Lauren.
All right, great, thank you very
All
much.
right. Thanks, Brandon.
Yep.
Excuse me. Oh, we're fine on time. All right. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the notice of intent filed for 0 Butternut Lane, Map 6.E, Parcel 37. Is the applicant or someone representing the applicant here this evening?
We are actually both here tonight.
Oh,
My
there you
name
are.
is
All right.
Tom Schutz. I work for Goddard Consulting, and Pam Duggan is also here, and she is the home or the property owner and a butter.
Excellent. Tom, I'm wondering, do you have the plans? And if there is there any way you can pull them up on screen?
Yeah, certainly. Let me just share my screen.
That would be excellent.
All right, here's a colored up version of the site plan that we took a look at the last hearing as well, and
Yep.
we took a look at today at the site walk.
All right. And so I guess I was going to start off by saying that that myself and Jim Garrity managed to go on a site walk today at this location to kind of confirm where the wetlands were, what we were seeing on site there, if we agree with all the offsets. I think it was pretty clear where everything was getting laid in. When it comes to the wetlands there, I kind of more near the top of the screen. I don't know if that's actually north. I guess to the, yeah.
This is
that
the
way.
north
Up
arrow
by,
right
up by
here.
where the DEP file number is. You know, they're very well defined. We can kind of see the distances. It's basically a flat topography of that looks like it was basically either farmland or grazing land. We had more concerns and questions about the wetlands coming off from the other side, which was a pond that basically this what was a horse paddock drained into. Somebody kind of filled a drainage ditch, but we had discussed in the field about where at the edge of the property, it's basically going to be allowed to naturalize around where this particular property connects with the property in which the drainage ditch is on, and that there isn't in fact going to be a retaining wall. So basically the flow of water should be minimized to a certain extent. One thing we discussed out in the field, it looks like the areas, and I want to say kind of brown or beige kind of brown, were to be naturalized, if I'm correct.
Correct.
And and we had discussed the possibility of putting something in the conditions about memorializing those areas either by fence, split rail fence, 2-foot diameter boulders, or conservation markers, but somehow to denote the areas that are supposed to be, that are remaining as that are to be naturalized over time, just so the new owner knows not to start mowing in there. And I think he even suggested in the field possibly recommending a conservation seed mix for the especially the naturalized parts, again outside of what's to be part of the property, the shading in green, I guess I would say. That is the best I could recollect from our site visit today. I'd ask Jim Garrity if you have any additional thoughts or comments or anything else you'd like to point out from our site visit.
No, I think you captured it all, Brian. Thank you.
Okay. Members of the commission have any additional comments and or questions regarding this particular hearing? I'm not seeing any. Are there any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing?
Yes, I'm the property owner. I'd like to just ask a question.
Sure, please.
Okay, so as far as when you're talking about naturalizing, the field that is where it's just above north of the property that says open space,
Mhm.
That property is, I'm assuming that's considered that it's naturalized space, that's the condition?
Yeah,
Correct. I think that's what we were looking at in the field during the site walk, that just letting it grow and letting it kind of become the naturalized field that exists to the north of the site.
Okay, the town does mow that
I-
on occasion. So I would, because there's a lot of poison ivy that grows in there. And you know, if it's completely unkept, I think that it could be not, you know, it's not gonna even look like the lot next door, which is, you know, somewhat maintained. So is it gonna be specific to, you know, at least being able to mow it, you know, a certain, you know, to keep it basically at the same condition as the open space that's next to it?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I had marked that down. I had not brought that up at all. Usually what we'll do is we'll allow like a once a year mowing, which I'm guessing is how that field is maintained now. It looks like it's a once yearly mowing. And we'll usually put that into the conditions, that area is to be allowed to naturalize with the conservation seed mix. And it is available for once per year, no more than once a year mowing.
Okay,
Brian, maybe
Fine,
we can
go
take
ahead,
a look
Tom.
at while the conditions are being written, maybe we could take
Yeah.
a look at when that open space is being mowed and kind of putting it on the same schedule as this property, because we don't want to restrict it to being a once a year if we don't know that's the once a year mow to the north as well. Because if
Yeah.
it's like a spring and fall kind of deal, then maybe this property would also benefit from that.
Yeah, we can say something along the same cadence, you know, mowing at the same cadence as the open field.
Yeah, because with that, the Conservation Commission actually does contract for the butternut mowing, I believe. I think we actually contract that out, so we should be able to figure out that answer pretty quick.
sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Were there any other questions or comments for members of the public? And seeing none. Tom, I'm just trying to think if I can how I can verbalize that condition that we tie it to a similar mowing to what's say I'm just tongue-tying myself. In other words, we can close the hearing tonight and then wait and add conditions and vote on it at the next meeting, which would give us a chance to kind of research that and write all that stuff in. we can try to close it tonight with conditions. I just got to figure out the right wording for those conditions.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
could-
I think we would prefer if it closed with special conditions tonight, if you could think of the right wording for it. Might I
I was
suggest,
assuming, yeah, I was assuming that's the route you'd want to go. I think it would be, so it would be, the, all right, so the areas to be naturalized, as denoted on the plans, should use a an appropriate conservation seed mix in this area can be can be subject to either once a year mowing or mowing on a similar schedule as surrounding town lands.
Can I just ask one more? I'm sorry. One
Go
more.
ahead. No, please do.
So, and we're talking about only it's not really all of the pink or whatever area, because the pink area isn't, like, the part that's at the front of the bottom of the property is outside of the buffer zone of the pond
Yep.
and the riverfront. So it's not really the pink area, right?
Well,
Just-
the brownish area there,
Yeah.
but there are areas inside the buffer zone that we are allowing to be turned into lawn, maintained lawn, and oftentimes to mitigate that, we'll look for some square footage somewhere else that can be naturalized, to make up for the buffer zone area that's becoming lawn. We'll look for area abutting the buffer zone sometimes that we can have naturalized.
Uh-huh.
Usually that trade-off is almost at a 2-for-1, depending. So I think that was part of the thinking there, is that, yeah, that entire brown area would remain as, and again, it's the once a year mowing field, which kind of has it as the same, it would match the abutting properties that connect up with it. And I know it would give them a relatively smaller yard, but that's one of the reasons why we would look at doing it that way.
Okay, I'm just kind of thinking though, because it would be my parents' home.
Yeah.
And so it connects with my property because I abut. So we
Yep.
would be crossing back and forth to each
Oh,
other.
I see. You're saying the back end of the, I hate
Yeah.
to say that, to the left
Yeah,
side
the-
of your screen.
Yeah, the kind of northwest corner of the property is where we would be going back and forth. So, I mean, we can also walk across conservation if we want to walk through tall
Yeah.
grass and walk all over that as much as we want. But it would end up trampled, but it doesn't seem like that part kind of seems a little, I don't know what the word is, constricting, because we'll be, the whole
Sure.
point of this is for my parents to be close enough that I can help them maintain their property, and I can get over there if they're both 81 now,
Sure.
So that's the whole point. So like that, the back of the property seems like that's not going to be helpful.
Yep.
So
Okay. So, and again, I'll put it out to other commission members. I can completely see that. All right. And trying to write in something that says that we can basically extend that green yard to the back end of that property line. If that makes somewhat sense. But what I would ask in that case, for you and Tom is to kind of get us a new plan that shows us that. I'd ask for us to probably continue it for a meeting, see if we can get in a new plan that shows that, so we can see where the connections are and make sure it's laid out on the plan ahead of time. And then just have us kind of formalize it on that new map and close it out at next meeting. And this way we can also write up all of the conditions in advance, the basic conditions, and just kind of have that ready. In other words, I totally see what you're saying, but that's not something I want to try to wordsmith my way through in tonight's meeting. I'd almost rather just see that on an updated set of plans and be able to approve it. Does that make sense?
Depicting that on the set of plans is going to be difficult though, because our limit of work is essentially demarcating where the naturalized area is going to be. So that would just mean we'd be extending our limit of work towards the rear of the property outside of the conservation jurisdiction either way. So I don't know if having a new set of plans is going to be changing anything, because that is outside of conservation jurisdiction either way. And we are providing an ample amount of mitigation down to the south of the site. So just
Sure. And again, I would say it's fine to have that as connecting yard. I just don't know how to say that. In other words, that's something that needs to be written out and completely understood. And I don't want to try to fumble through and guess at the wording tonight. Do you understand what I'm saying, Tom?
Yep.
If I had, that's why even like a set of plans, it just kind of shows just an updated set of plans that shows, this area right here is to, connects between two properties and does not need to be maintained as, naturalized or twice a year mowing. It just starts getting difficult when we start talking about parts on the plans or on the map without actually having them written on there. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, but again, it's out of the Conservation Commission's purview of that area anyway. So technically Pam could leave that as lawn if she wanted to and not disturb it. If we're putting in the bounds of the area already, we can
Sure,
put
but
it towards the rear of the property.
Once again, you are working within the buffer zone, and in order to mitigate that, usually what we'll do is we'll have other areas that we ask to have naturalized that abut the buffer zone, which is kind of what we have here. And again, I'm more than willing to say you're giving up other areas. That's fine. Let that back end connect. I have no problem with that. I just need to see that on an actual plan and not kind of talk about it in the ether as to what's going to happen to this plan. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not opposed to what you're asking at all. I just need to see it on a plan.
Okay.
Oh, does that make sense? And again, I'll put it out to other commission members. If somebody has good wording or has a different direction, I'm perfectly acceptable to that as well.
Yeah, it seems a little difficult to try and articulate in words, Brian. I agree. A new plan would make it clean.
Okay, and is the because you said Brian, the 2 for 1 basically. So do we know the square footage that we're talking about that we're doing the mitigation for?
We don't, it wasn't listed. And it might be, I'm sorry, Tom, it might be listed. I did not see it and I haven't read it that closely. That's something that, if you guys want to let us know, like the full square footage in the buffer zone and try to figure out what areas you want to naturalize and what you don't, perfectly fine. We were just kind of approving it by eye because we knew you had to come in order to kind of make everything else work. And again, I appreciate that, from the original plans that we saw, you really moved a lot of stuff out, especially the house itself, the driveway itself, out of the buffer zone, which is great. Mm-hmm. And again, what you're asking, I think we can do it. I just really need to see it drawn out.
Okay, because to me, to be honest, I think that plan is the plan that we have right here is actually giving a lot. I'm wondering if the 2 for 1 is actually going to be less than what we're looking at right now. So
it could be. And again, I'm happy to approve the plan right here, but the plan right here calls for that area to be naturalized that you don't want to be naturalized. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, Tom, we can just take a look at it and come back.
We'll discuss offline.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
But let me just say, apart from that, did commission members have any other comments, questions, or thoughts? I mean, I think that's the only thing we really have a question with, but am I incorrect there?
No, I think everything else seems good.
Okay. And is there anybody else from the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? All right. And so not seeing any, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 0 Butternut Lane till our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 17th at 7:15 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second,
All right, all those in favor, starting with Paul,
aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. All right. Okay. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the notice of intent for 711/713 Main Street DEP file number 112-0735. Correct in that? So an update from last time. We knew we had some new plans to basically go through. There were some minor changes, primarily around what was happening with the stream. Myself and Jim Garrity were able to go out today on a site visit to inspect what was being proposed, see where it was laid out and how it was laid out. I think the only question we had, there was a question about the runoff, about how some of the guttering works and where that proposed runoff was to go. And a question about the construction schedule for removing some of the existing foundation that abuts where the stream is, basically. And I'm just wondering, Tim, did we get any answers on either of those?
Mr. Chairman, yes, we did. We were able to come up with answers. I think on both of those. And if I can share my screen, I can refer you to those places in the application where those things are.
All right, that would be
represented.
wonderful.
Okay. And let's see, which part of the screen do I want to share? It is here, I think. Okay, can you guys see that? Whoops, where'd it go? This one, sorry. Okay. Let me start with the question of where the stormwater is directed from our proposed farmer's porch. So I know we've got a relatively cluttered plan. Can you follow my cursor?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. So the building at 713, I'm tracing its footprint here. And the porch and roofed portion question is this bit that wraps from the south to the east. And this is guttered along its south and east edges. And if you follow this line and you can see the letter RD, that indicates that it is draining to this area that you see indicated the proposed roof dry well. And so this is located immediately to the west of the boardwalk. So between the proposed boardwalk and parking. Does that seem clear?
It does. It does.
Okay.
That kind of answers what
Great.
I was trying to figure today, whereas they were putting that.
Yep. That was my suspicion, but I didn't want to just shoot from the hip. So we were able to dig that up, and that seems to be pretty well clarified there. Then the next question as to what I represented in my notes was the question regarding the kind of methodology for removal of some of the masonry and rubble material that comprise the former foundation of the former barn. My recollection that I think I referred to on site this afternoon was some pretty specific language that we had in our initial RDA like a year and a half ago. And as I read through that, we were very specific about the wood components of the barn, and we did not get detailed in that application about the foundation material. Here in our present NOI, it looks like we addressed that pretty directly here, and Jim, I think this was your concern, so let me know if I'm answering it directly or not. I hope it is. What we're saying here is that fundamentally, sort of, we're referring to these kind of graduated degrees of sensitivity for excavating and working on new foundation. So removal of the old and placement of the new. And I think the keys are that, we're indicating that we're going to be sort of sensitive in a kind of calibrated way. So for work immediately adjacent to the resource area and down in the barn, any equipment that would be brought down there would be below 10,000 pounds. Any equipment, any machinery exceeding 10,000 pounds would be located and operated from within the courtyard. And any machinery between 5,000 pounds and 10,000 pounds that was operated down adjacent to the resource area would only be operated over a mat that's a half-inch mat pack ground protection mat or the equivalent. So I don't think that I can tell you that I know which machinery we're going to use, but I think in good faith we're saying if it's light stuff, we'll go closer, and if it's medium weight, we'll use the medium defined as between 5 and 10. We'll use the protection mats, and if it's anything in excess of 10, it would be located only in the courtyard. So does that address your question, Jim?
Yeah, it does, Tim. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. Just kind of looking through my notes, and I want to thank you in the field today. I think you had it up earlier too. I know you gave us an updated planting plan, which is one of the things DEP was asking for, and I know we asked for that last time, and I really appreciate that. I had a chance to look at that this afternoon and seemed to have everything we were looking for.
I'll pull that up just while I'm still sharing my screen, just sort of for the record, so that that can be part of the conversation. Whoops. So sorry. Wrong way. There we go. Acrobat did a recent update that I have not yet been, I'm no longer expert with my Acrobat software. There we go.
Okay. Oh, and this is good. This shows the reconfigured parking lot as well, which we had a chance to look at in the field.
Yeah, one of the things that may be worth pointing out as a result of our last session of this hearing is the kind of introduction of the pollinator meadow as the sort of default background planting scheme and material, such that one of the bits of commentary from the DEP referred to a kind of manicured orchard as being sort of inappropriate, and we wanted to represent do a better job of representing our actual intent. And so you see where my cursor is tracing an area that I would describe as manicured, but it's really the size of like a large carpet. It's a kind of very finite outdoor room here, and then surrounded by pollinator meadow, and then a single kind of mown path that would complete a loop through the area to the north. And then we show 4 crabapple trees located here. So there's So there's some sense of a visual order and a kind of organization, and yet the plant material itself would be largely sort of wild in appearance. All of this stuff we see represented a number of shade tolerant native species planted beneath and adjacent to the barn. And then elsewhere, really everywhere else that we don't have a specific other sort of design intent. For example, these areas, the areas here between the boardwalk and 713, even an area here just north of that tree that bounds our parking. This area as well, all these things with this little kind of V hash mark, or it looks like maybe a bird's foot kind of hash mark. All of that is now proposed as the kind of pollinator meadow and wildflowers. So anyway, that's just a broad overview. I'm happy to answer more questions about that if you have them, but I think that's the kind of bigger, the sweep of it all.
Not sure if I had additional questions. Any members of the commission have additional comments, questions, or thoughts? Not seeing any.
I'll just remind you all that we've got Dave Crossman with us. I don't see his picture up here, but I know he's on the call tonight if you've got questions relating to the river. And we've also got Nathaniel Cataldo with us from Stamsky, the civil engineers on the project. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. And I didn't see any questions right away from members of the commission. Let me just ask any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing. And again, I'm not seeing any. All right. So all of that said, Tim, I kind of have two options. We can close the hearing tonight, but we may not vote on it. I forget how many days we have, because I'm still trying to get in touch with town council. They're trying to set up a meeting for me to sit with town council. My biggest stumbling point for this project, which again, I think is fine. I think it's an improvement on what the area is. I appreciate all that you've tried to lay out here. Is just, again, we've never done this, this much work within a riverfront area. And I appreciate when you guys had sent along your letter explaining the legal means by which you're allowed to make this, that this is generally speaking an improvement. And that seeing, what was it, post 1996, so this was pre-96, you were allowed certain things and all the legal reasons that you were allowed to be able to do this much work within the riverfront area. I completely appreciate that you said that. I have no reason to doubt its veracity. But again, I'm just not a lawyer. It's something I need to have somebody with a legal background actually read through and make sure it's all basically as it says it is. And the reason I bring this up is, so I have basically two options. We could close tonight and vote on it after I've had a chance to talk to the council. In which case, if they said everything's fine, yes, they meet all these standards, they don't have any questions, then we can probably just, approve it. I'm trying to think if there may be small conditions that we would ask for as far as stockpiling of materials. I don't think there's any major changes or anything big we're looking for. My other option is we can continue it tonight to our next meeting. Let me talk to legal counsel, and then try to just close it out at next meeting. The reason that might be better is if legal counsel says, no, I have questions, or I don't think they meet all of the standards. If we've already closed the hearing, then, would be most likely to possibly vote not in favor of the NOI because legal brought up these questions. Whereas if we leave the hearing open and town council has some questions, it gives you the chance to answer them and maybe, we can solve it there. Does that make sense?
It does, and I appreciate your explaining that. If you would just grant me a moment to sidebar with my client, I appreciate the chance to do that, and we'll answer you as quickly as we can.
That's fine. Please do. Yep.
Thanks.
And while they're discussing, I just want to make sure with Paul and Jim, that makes sense too. Do you understand what I'm basically saying? If we're, I think we've answered our major questions. The only one I really have left is, are we following everything legally for? And again, I probably should have asked ahead of time if you guys were comfortable with both of those, with closing tonight and then, you know, getting an answer
Yeah.
and voting, and or just keep it and vote. Okay.
Makes sense, yeah.
Gee, well, while they're discussing, Jim and Paul, did you have a chance to look through the minutes from September 19th?
Yes, yes, I did.
Any edits, corrections, changes?
Nope,
They look
looked good to me.
fantastic. Yeah, they look great.
Excellent. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our September 19th, 2023 meeting as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for minutes approval?
Second,
All those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
aye.
and Lauren, I'm an aye as well. Okay, if they need a couple more minutes, we can just go through some of our updates real quick. You'll see on there still is the review of the FY24 budget, and the discussion regarding the draft wetland bylaw regulations. Again, those are out there for commission members. If you haven't had a chance to review them, please do. I'm sure we'll be talking more about them in the future, but they are there and waiting for you. As far as conservation land updates, I don't really have any at this point in time. Other than to say, the authorized trail stewardship projects, again, which are all listed on our agenda and on the town website, are in process. Some are being worked on, some are being planned out, but these are the ones that have been approved, and the Trails Committee is slowly working their way through those. Those. Good, we took it off. So we had been talking to people about the open space and recreation plan, the OSRP plan. There was a survey. The survey closed October 1st. So the survey is now closed. If anybody has burning opinions upon our open space and recreation plans, I think you could probably still reach out, possibly send something to the Conservation Commission with comments, thoughts, or questions. And we could probably still get your thoughts heard, but I know they are slowly but surely working on the update of the OSRP. It looks like we may be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
thank you for your patience.
No problem.
How's my
Totally-
time?
It was a big question. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So thanks for the chance to kind of sidebar with Craig. I recognize that this is our ask here, and our proposal is a little outside of the realm of the familiar for you all here on the commission. We recognize that there are some input that you haven't yet been able to gather from town council and others, as you've mentioned. I guess from our vantage point, you know, it's sort of a question of timing. We have been, you know, as you'll know, doing our best to sort of show up here at every hearing and, you know, call into and integrate the expertise of the relevant consultants as they're requested, certainly at some considerable expense and effort in coordinating. You know, we feel like we've done a pretty comprehensive job of trying to make a significant and very difficult improvement to a kind of a derelict and yet very critical site to ecosystems and you know, the kind of broader context there in Bolton. So, you know, from our end of the dialogue and our side of the table, we've really been working hard to bring the resources, and we are just wondering, as you refer to your need to gather your resources, you know, you mentioned that over the last couple of hearings, and they're still not at the table. So are those dialogues ongoing? Is that
Yeah, it's
something
trying to
you've
scale. I mean,
sought
look,
and
this
been
is
unable to
not
find?
this is not my full-time job. You are at your full-time job right now. I work a full-time job on top of this. This I do for volunteering. It's way more hours a month than I want it to be. It's basically a part-time job. I told you in the field day I had to take a day off of work so I could get site visits today. So when town council is available, oftentimes it's when I'm working the job that I actually get paid to do. So it's trying to find where I can take time off of my job to meet with town council and sit down. So I appreciate all that you're saying, but I'm, you know, the commission members, the only ones who are not getting paid here tonight at all. We have no money on the line with this. So that's where my issue is with meeting with town council. You know,
So
I'm
have you
sorry that I haven't been able to do it yet. Again, if we had Rebecca here, it would have been a different story. She is out on maternity leave, which is wonderful. Normally we would have had her to look at these things up and answer these questions for her. We don't. So I'm in a position where I got to figure out the law as a part-time job on top of my full-time job. And I'm sorry that I'm kind of lecturing here, but I asked you a simple question. Do you want us to close it? Or do you want us to keep it open? And why I needed that to happen, you just gave me a 10-minute long lecture about everything you've been doing. That's great. I'd like to finish this meeting and go to sleep. All right. And I'm sorry if that's seeming rude, but that's why I haven't had a chance to meet with town council yet. Do you want us to close the hearing, or do you want us to continue the hearing? And again, I can explain it again. If we close it and town council has questions about the legality, we'll probably deny it. If we close it and town council's fine with the legality, my guess is we'll just put it out there. If you continue it and there's questions, you know, we can continue having this discussion. That's the question. Do you want me to close tonight or continue tonight?
Hey, Brian, this is Craig, okay?
Craig, I honestly, we're past the time for this hearing.
Brian,
That is
Brian,
my
please.
last question. I'm
Brian,
not sure
please.
what you want to lecture me about or tell
I'm
me
not gonna
about.
lecture about anything, Brian. I just
Go ahead,
said
go ahead, go
my
ahead.
name.
Please tell me this is pertinent to my question. Go ahead.
Of course it is.
All right.
I haven't
please.
said a word in any of these hearings.
I know, but I'm not gonna, and again, I have no reason to doubt you, but I'm not gonna take your legal advice. I'm gonna listen
Tell
to
me
the
about
town's
what?
legal
I haven't said
counsel.
a Brian.
Oh,
Brian,
go
I
ahead.
haven't
Go
said a
ahead, but
word.
Craig, I'm not sure what this is going to accomplish. I'm not gonna make a ruling until I
I
hear
haven't
from the
said
town's legal
anything yet.
counsel. So
Brian,
we
I
can argue
haven't
till we're
said
blue in the
anything
face,
yet.
or we can just continue or close.
Brian, we're trying to have a dialogue. I haven't said a word.
Okay, Craig, go ahead. Please.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I think you're being very confrontational. I don't know why. We're simply trying to bring a ton of work to the end zone here. Okay. I appreciate the fact that you need legal counsel. All we're trying to establish is when will that happen? what is the timeline here so that we can come to a conclusion? Okay? And, you know, I don't know why you're frustrated and it seems like you're angry. I just don't understand that. I've never said a word in any of these meetings, sir. And you're confrontational with me.
I don't want to cut you off, Greg, and I
I'm
don't want
done.
to be
I'm done.
confrontational with you.
I'm done.
I-
You know,
all
I
right.
mean,
No,
I'm done.
I get,
I just want to bring this to a conclusion and we're
sure.
trying to be fair and reasonable here.
And again, I'm not saying you're not fair and reasonable. And again, I'm not saying,
But
again,
you're frustrated, clearly. I mean,
well, the reason I'm frustrated is I had put forth the question, and I think I explained pretty well, and let me finish this time. I put forth the question, I think it explained it pretty well. When you came back, it was, I will call it a 5-minute lecture on everything great you've been doing and why can't I move this along faster, which I appreciate. But again, we are volunteers. I do this on top of my job. I thought I was pretty clear as to what my holdup was, and I just wanted that question answered so I can move on to the next thing. So at some point in time tonight, I can go to bed so I can go to my real job tomorrow.
Brian,
I don't do this for the fun of it. I don't get paid for this. Craig, let
Brian.
me finish my statement, please. I let you finish. And that's why when I get lectured, that is why I tend to get upset like this. Please just answer the question. We'd like to move on. We have other things we have to deal with, and this is not something I do for fun.
Let me respond. First of all,
Please.
I was on the advisory board in Princeton for 12 years, so I understand your volunteerism and I applaud it. Okay. But
Okay.
in this circumstance, you know, we have considerable work that's been done and it's considerable discussion relative to your request. So, you know, Tim and I wanted to counsel, which we did for a few minutes. And, you know, given the preponderance of what we've done and the importance of what is presented to the board, I think it's extremely important that we had that moment to discuss it. Okay. So we did that. And would you please reiterate the two choices that you wish us to rule on from our perspective?
Sure, that we're at a point where we don't have additional questions, but I do have questions that I'd like to pursue with town council. So the question to you was, would you prefer, because if we don't have additional questions we're putting out to you tonight, and there were no additional public questions for you tonight, and as you said, this hearing has been going on, you provided the things we've asked to provide as far as the planning plan goes, the changes to the plan, you provided everything we've asked for. We didn't have any additional questions. Usually at that point, what we would do is close the hearing, all right, which was option one. We can close the hearing. And what I told you is we probably won't vote on it tonight. I believe we have 14 days to issue a vote. And the reason that we wouldn't vote on it tonight is I wanted to hear from legal counsel about my one remaining question, which is not a question, as much work as you guys have done, it's not a question that you guys can answer. I need to hear it from our legal side, not from any of yours.
All right, that seems
So that was,
reasonable to me.
please let me finish it. So that was my question, was do you want us to close it and we'll vote on it in 2 weeks? But if legal says there's something wrong with it, we'll probably deny it and start all over again. Or would you prefer we continue it? And that way, if legal has a question in 2 weeks, we can continue the discussion, see if you have a response to what legal's saying. And those are really the two options I have for us right now, the two ways in which this can really go. And I'll put it out to other commission members as well. Perhaps they want to vote on it this evening. Perhaps they don't want to, I'm not sure, but those are really my only two options to move along this hearing and get to our next hearing. Does that make
Mike,
sense?
do you mind if I jump in?
I was gonna say,
Tim, hold
please,
on one
if there's a
second.
third option, let me know, but go ahead.
Hold on one second, guys. I understand your concern. But I don't know the ramifications of option A or option B. So Tim, I will refer to you relative to your experience in these matters, what we should do. We definitely don't want to stop the conversation. All right. That's my bottom line.
I think the commission wants some counsel. That's clear to us. We think it makes sense that they get this counsel. We don't know what that's going to consist of. And there's some likelihood that it inflects or colors the way they think about our application. And to the extent that that's likely, we'd want to be able to participate in their thinking. It would be a shame if deliberations had closed and we no longer had that opportunity. So, we've had a chance to voice some disappointment that things haven't moved faster. I don't think we need to reiterate that. Craig was gracious in expressing his enthusiasm and applauding Brian's volunteerism, and we can apologize for having raised our voices or any other untoward behavior. But I think, look, we're all doing our best here to try to make a nice thing happen in Bolton, and we are hopeful that you guys can get the counsel from your advisors sooner rather than later. And I think it would be appropriate and prudent that we keep the hearing open until you've had a chance to do that, and share feedback or reactions with us so that we might keep trucking.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
Tim.
right. Okay. And again, I will apologize if I got short at all. And I will tell you, I do agree, Tim. Your project in general, I think you are trying to do a good thing here. And I think you have done a lot to keep changing it to the point where I think everybody's pretty much happy with it. And I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate the time you've all put in. And again, I'm sorry if I was short. All that said, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 711 Sus 713 Main Street until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 17th at 7:25 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep.
All right. Okay, I'm sorry. So now the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent for 580 Main Street. Is the applicant or somebody representing the applicant here this evening?
Yes, good evening. It's Brandon Carr with Decreed Engineering, and I'm here with Jeff O'Neill from Condyne Development. They're the owner and applicant.
All right. Brandon, if I remember correctly, the last time we were basically waiting to hear if there was a DEP file number, and if they had any comment on this particular
Yeah, so
LOI. Go
I
ahead.
can, we still don't have a file number. There's been some miscommunication. It should
Okay.
be issued in the next couple of days, so we will be looking for a continuance to your next hearing.
Okay.
But I can give you a quick kind of overview. We did get comments from planning, and we did get a couple comments from DEP that we've addressed and we responded to. So I can show you kind of nothing really changed with the meat of the application. But I can just to get you updated on that, and we can.
Yeah, if you could give a quick run through, that way we can see if there's any questions on that, and if not, we'll basically just wait on the DEP file number.
Yeah,
but
so, and then
great.
just also to update, since our last hearing, we've gotten approval from the Board of Selectmen, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and Planning on their particular aspects of the project. So the last, local approval we're looking for is the NOI. But so we sent in plans maybe 2 weeks ago addressing the comments that we got from planning staff and also from DEP. The planning comments were really nothing with the layout changed. They were some clarification on adding screening around the dumpster, clarification on the electric vehicle chargers, which are located up here. They requested some wheel stops, and then there were some modifications to the lighting to bring the height of the light fixtures down several feet below the 20-foot requirement of planning. There were some changes to the landscape plan, nothing with the layout or species, but we increased the size of some of the trees and shrubs that were proposed. So some of the trees was previously spec'd for like 2.5-inch caliper, though that went to 3-inch caliper, and then we just specified. I don't think the size of the plantings changed, but there's a requirement in the planning regulations that all shrubs be 18 inches. So we just added some notes on that. And then there were some questions with planning on parking related to parking agreements between this development, the residential development and any abutters. So we just add some signage and some information to the agreements between the parties that, you know, there's no spillover parking allowed. You know, this is enough parking here. We, you know, there's signage that parking's not allowed on the entrance road or anything like that. So really the layout, number of parking spaces, the stormwater treatment that we were proposing, none of that changed. There was a couple comments from DEP2 related just to the adding some more information to the checklist, and then the fee, which is what has held up the number. There's an additional fee for work within the riverfront. We sent that in when the check got cut in my office. Honestly, somebody made it $12 short, so we had to follow up with a $12 check, which just cleared today. So they won't issue the number until the check clears. So that's what we've been waiting on with them. So we're hoping now that I saw that check cleared, they'll issue the number. But the two kind of substantial, you know, not substantial, but comments that we got from them was just to clarify the different buffers between the 100-foot wetlands and the 200-foot riverbank. So we just added some more notation and we colorized those different buffers just to make them clear to the DEP reviewer. And then they had a comment on, we didn't submit any field data forms or calculations for the wetland delineation as part of the NOI, but we followed up with that information to them. The wetlands for this piece were all delineated as part of the other NOI for the multifamily project. So that data was all from, I believe, 2021. So they just, I don't think they saw the link between the two projects, but once we specified that, they had all that information on file and they were able to clear out that. So at this point, we've addressed all the DEP comments. We've addressed all the planning and other town boards comments and received their approval. And we're just really waiting on that file number. So if you have any questions about the project, we're happy to answer them. Otherwise, we would just, you know, request a continuance to your next hearing so that we can hopefully get that number and close it out at that point.
Yeah, no, I don't, I appreciate you going through, some of the changes you make, because it's usually what we'll be looking at DEP's comments and seeing that you've done that or questioning that. I don't know if you've already submitted this to the conservation office. All right, I was gonna say,
Yes.
so it'll give us a chance to look through it before,
Yes, so
we
these
get
plans
before
and
next
it should be-
meeting.
Yeah, there's these plans, they were updated, I believe, September 26th.
Okay,
And there's an accompanying letter with all the comments and responses to the comments that was sent to conservation, planning, as well as DEP.
I think we may have that too. Okay, so all that said, like, I don't have any additional questions right now. Again, I think you've addressed the things that DEP have put in front of you, and I appreciate you explaining those. And I don't think I had any additional questions before. We were just waiting for the DEP number, so I don't have anything additional at this time. But do any commission members have additional comments, questions, or thoughts at this time?
Nothing from me.
Okay. All right. Any members of the public have any members of the public here tonight that wish to comment on this particular hearing? Again, not seeing any. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 580 Main Street until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 17th at 7:35 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
All right, thank you. We'll
All right.
see you.
Thank you.
We'll
Have a good
see you
night.
next time. All right. Commission members, in your lovely email, you probably saw a letter, an enforcement order for, I believe it's 7 and 8 Meadow Road.
Yes.
All right. Did you have a chance to look through that letter at all? I had a chance to read through it today. I didn't have any issues, comments, or questions with it, and it was just a question of us doing a roll call vote to ratify that we are in favor of this letter and that we approve of it. Paul and or Jim, any questions regarding the letter, comments, comfortable with the letter?
All set.
Yeah, looks fine.
Okay. In that case, I'm gonna call for a roll call vote for us to ratify the enforcement order on lots 7 and 8 of Meadow Road, DEP file number 112-699, as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. All those in favor of ratifying this order, please say aye, starting with Paul, Jim,
Aye.
and Lauren. I'm an aye as well. We have our enforcement order updates. There are no updates on any of the three that we have yet, but 3 John Powers Lane, I believe Jim, myself, and Paul, if you're available, are stopping out for a site visit this week to try to sign off on their final growth, basically their final regrow. I knew they had to remove some things from the path, and we were giving it another season to regrow. I can't remember the story if they're in the process of selling their house or whatnot, but they're really hoping to get sign off on that. I've tasked poor Lauren with trying to figure out what we've done in the past. If it's just simply a letter saying that they've met the conditions, or if we need to sign off on something officially. But I know at least Jim and myself, and again, Paul, if you are available, hopefully we can stop out there tomorrow to just to take a look to be able to sign off on that.
Is it tomorrow or Thursday?
I'm sorry, is it Thursday for John Powers?
I think it's tomorrow. Tomorrow is John Powers, and Thursday, I think, Lauren, is
It's the septic.
Main
on
Street.
Main.
Yeah, Main
Okay,
Street.
got it.
Yeah, I forget the address, but it's the grass growing above the septic tank on Thursday.
Okay, all right. This happened to be a tough week for me, but I'll try.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I saw there was a question from Muhammad Al Hassan. Could we unmute that individual?
Yeah.
And-
Hi, my
Hi.
name is Mohammed Al Hassan. I am the I'm the owner of lot 7 and 8 Meadow Road.
Oh, okay, yes. I'm
so,
sorry, go ahead.
So thank you for all your help with rectifying this. My only issue is I would love to get, I don't know if you guys looked at the plans. I would love to get my driveway in and get that whole front side all stabilized and everything. So I applied for the driveway permit like a year and a half ago. And it's a scenic road. So I've been going through pretty much hell trying to get this approved, but everything is finally like all approved and stuff, except now I think it's at the stage of conservation being approved. And I know conservation, she's on maternity leave, the conservation agent. So how is that going to be handled?
Well, we're conservation. We're meeting now.
Right.
I believe those have already been approved through conservation. We were discussing it tonight. There was that enforcement order because there was flooding at the end of the driveway that I believe needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
But as far as conditioning the project from conservation, I believe you should, or your builder should have all of that stuff in place. I believe we've already approved this project. This is simply, go ahead, Mohammed.
This is for the driveway permit approval. So
that might not be conservation at all. Again, as far as I know, everything that we need to approve for that building site has been approved.
When I look at the portal, all of them is check marked. So on the Conservation Commission, there's a blue with like a triangle. So it's saying it's at the step of the conservation right now to get approved for the driveway permit.
That is, I was gonna say, Lauren,
Is
I'm
there a way I
looking
can
at
take
you
a
and you might
picture?
not know this. Lauren Duckett.
Yeah.
She is, as you said, we have a person out of maternity leave. Lauren has just come on to try to kind of help with that load at town hall, but she is
Right.
kind of learning on the job.
Mhm.
Lauren, is that something we can look up? And again, Mr. Al Hassan, like if there was something that we need to check off or submit, like I think we can do that, because as far as I know, your whole project, we have approved it.
Right. So the driveway permit, if you go online, the number is DP-22-4. So that's just the if you go on the view portal,
Yeah.
that's just the number DP-22-4. Thank you so
Would it
much,
be
guys.
DEP 112 dash?
No,
Usually
so
it's
I'm looking at the application right now. online,
Okay.
and it says DP-22-4. It's a driveway permit. So once I have the driveway permit applied, that's when I will go ahead and, because I have to do some blasting for the rocks for the driveway.
I see.
And I'll actually put in the actual driveway, stabilize it, put the ponds, and hopefully by the end of this year, have some sort of grass and stabilize that front area, because I know we've been having a lot of,
Yeah, yeah.
the other lots have been having a lot of problems with the water runoff and stuff. So my goal is try to stabilize it as much as possible before the year ends.
Okay.
I'll
And
have to look into that because I know that our DEP file numbers usually begin with 112-3 numbers, so that
It's
doesn't
not,
sound like.
it's not a DEP file number. It's a driveway permit number.
Oh,
It's
DEP.
not the D.
so that might not, and again, we can ask the question, if you ask somebody in town hall tomorrow, Lauren, that
Yeah.
might simply be a different department, which I know
Yeah,
is
I can
frustrating.
find that out.
But if it is us and we need to check off or submit something or whatnot, we will absolutely do that, sir.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And
Have a
Mohammed,
wonderful.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that file number for me one more time? So I
Oh,
can
yes,
take
no
it?
problem.
Okay.
It's DP-22-4.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
All right,
too.
take care. Okay. Right. That said, I'm just looking through, I think we have hit just about everything other than, we do have the volunteer land steward position still available.
Oh, sorry, Brian.
Go ahead,
Before
Lauren.
you move on, oh, you did the roll call vote. I'm sorry. That's
We
all
did.
set. Yeah.
We did.
okay.
Yeah, no, I feel bad because it's always the case. I call for the vote and then normally I'm so good about asking for public comment. And the one time I don't is when somebody has a question right after we take the vote. But no harm, no foul on that one, I think. So yeah, just looking, we still have our volunteer land steward position available. And I will put this one out there too. We have Conservation Commission slots available. Lauren, I will try to find his official notice and pass it on to town hall, but I just want to let everyone know that we Bolton Conservation Commission member William Payne, Bill Payne, who served for a number of years recently, was wonderful to serve with, had a wonderful attitude, easy to talk to, very well thought out. They are moving out of state, unfortunately, and he is going to need to resign from the Conservation Commission. So I just wanted to publicly thank him quickly. Again, he did a lot of wonderful work. He was a wonderful person to work with. We appreciate all of the hours that he gave, and we wish him well in the future. But that said, now we have lots of Conservation Commission seats. So if anybody was ever interested, I'm sure our legions of fans watching this at home know that you can also come with a friend or a neighbor. If two of you want to maybe sign up together, I like to point out that you don't need to jump right onto the commission. We do have an associate commission member title that is basically just a non-voting member of the commission. So you could come to meetings, come with us on site visits. We have some money for training, and then decide if it's something you want to become an actual voting member of the commission or not. But we could use the help if you care about Bolton's open space, or you just care about good local governance. We're always looking for volunteers. We could really use the help. So when people watch this at home, as I'm sure millions will, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out to the Conservation Commission email address. I think that is everything on our agenda. Commission members, any new business or anything fun and interesting you would like to discuss?
I'm all set.
All good.
All right. Seeing none, I would then like to make a motion that we hereby adjourn the Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Paul.
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Thank you both. Sorry, I was yelling at people earlier. My apologies. It has been a long day. But thank you both, and thank you both for all of your time. I don't want to wait until you retire or move out of state. I appreciate the time you guys put in, and I appreciate you putting up with my droning voice week after week. So everybody have a
Thank
lovely
you,
night.
Brian. Yep.
I will see you guys soon.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Recording stopped.